What's up with everybody? It's your man, Moya B.
And Nicole.
And we're back here with another reaction video. So yeah, another special video request from Reese Anderson. He wanted to check out the golden age. Well, Reese wanted to check out the golden age of piracy. Pirates.
Yeah. Must be a big pirate fan.
Yeah, he must love pirates. Love pirates.
But they're all really cool and informative.
Yeah, man. So we for diving into it, and thank you for your support.
Reese.
The fictional pirates of popular culture are mostly those modeled after real pirates from the so-called golden age of piracy. Captain Hook, Captain Jack Sparrow, and of course Captain Morgan were all pirates based around this interesting time. Today we be plundering through the archives of yore to give you a history of privateers, buccaneers, up to the golden age of pirates.
Today we be plundering.
Yeah.
That's what he said. Today we be plundering.
Hello my scurvy scalawags, and welcome you to another episode of It's History. We will first set our sights on the Caribbean, an area of important historical significance for both pirates
Caribbean was
and the
so
national
heavy full of
politics
pirates.
the modern period. The Caribbean is a region near the Gulf of Mexico in Central America that includes the Caribbean Sea, located off the Atlantic Ocean, and 700 plus islands that surround it. In 1492, Columbus and his crew arrived at the island of Hispaniola, the second largest island of the Caribbean. A dispute behind which island belonged to which empire quickly arose upon his return, and as a result, these newly discovered territories were divided between the Portuguese and the Spanish Empire. With the Treaty of Tordesillas, Spain was the big winner and held a complete monopoly on this region for more than 100 years, punishing any trespassers. Of course, the British, the French, and the Dutch weren't just going to watch the Spanish sail in unimaginable piles of gold because of some treaty. And soon, between 1520 and 1550, Spain's transatlantic trade became the target of French privateers, followed by English privateers from 1550 to 1600. Now let's turn our attention briefly to a few matters of terminology before we move on. First off, what do we mean when we say someone is a pirate? Well, someone who robs and plunders the sea, obviously. But it's actually not as simple as it sounds. For the Spanish, of course, all foreign ships that worked to steal its acquired gold and other goods from the natives were considered sea robbers and hence pirates. But it was mostly the case that these sea robbers, who originally claimed no country or allegiance, were given a license by other competing countries to go on attacking the Spanish, known as privateering, a sort of state-sponsored piracy. So ultimately, piracy was never just about robbery, but robbery without the cloak of legal authority. So anyway, where was I? Yes, the English privateers, known as the Sea Dogs, began to invade Spanish merchant ships between 1550 and 1600. The most famous sea dog of this time was Sir Francis Drake, who was a hero to the English and a pirate to the Spanish. Then came the Dutch, who severely damaged the Spanish commerce and basically took over control around the turn of the 17th century. Now, it was during this time where a group of rough and fearless outlaws began to form stronger groups around the western parts of Hispaniola. And these groups consisted of shipwrecked sailors, deserters, slaves, and runaways from the European countries sailing at the time. But wherever they came from, they clearly preferred the cruel conditions of the wild to the law and order of the civilized world they left behind. Numbers in these buccaneering communities grew larger as the way of life became more attractive to those without any land or luck back in Europe. The Spanish began to worry about these communities and tried to destroy them by killing their food supply. But this backfired as buccaneers stayed on the island and turned to sea robbery as a means of sustaining their livelihood. And by 1650, the term buccaneer became synonymous with sea raider. And it would be the buccaneers who became the privateers for the British, the French, and the Dutch in their efforts against the Spanish. Well, shortly after this time, under the leadership of Cromwell, the English take Jamaica, and many English buccaneers moved to the island as the French remain in Tortuga and Hispaniola. And with this shift, buccaneering moved from small operations of less than a dozen men to massive crews, sometimes numbering more than 100 sailors, turning into a military force that gained international fame in both London and France. Of course, these governments were happy because the buccaneers were forcing openings into lucrative markets and pressuring Spain to recognize their de facto colonies. But eventually, the usefulness of the buccaneers waned with the introduction of recognized treaties. Now, first the Treaty of the Hague in 1673 by the Dutch, and with the Treaty of Rijswijk by the French by the turn of the century, official privateering had ended, as well as the time of the buccaneer. As the buccaneers passed from sight, the out-and-out pirates, as the term has come to be used, came into view. As buccaneers simply didn't just vanish after finding they could no longer obtain official licenses, they turned to illegal raids, targeting all ships within their sight. These groups, who had helped in the gray zone of the 17th century border and trading disputes, were now demoted to the black zone as the outlaws of all nations. It would be in the year 1700 that pirates began sailing under the Jolly Roger flag. That well-known and notorious black flag of death came to signify pirate identity. as this new generation saw themselves not as privateers who shirked the name for fear of death penalties, but accepted it as a statement of who they were. But then came around another war, the War of the Spanish Succession, from 1701 to 1713. And lo and behold, pirates became patriots once more, as they filled the need for
course they
privateers.
did.
53,000 men who enlisted in the Navy in 1703 became cut to a quarter of its size by 1715 with the end of the war. And with their services no longer needed, hundreds of out-of-work sailors and soldiers joined pirate crews. It was only when the British decided to curb piracy by bringing in Woodes Rogers, himself a former pirate, as governor of the island, who offered a pardon to pirates in exchange for help rebuilding a lawful colony, or face eradication. Now, some pirates accepted this offer, and others rejected the state and its laws. No longer enjoying the protection of legitimacy once offered by governments, many pirates began to sail into the Indian Ocean, raiding slave posts along the coast of Africa.
boy.
This route between the Caribbean and the Indian Ocean became known as the Pirate Round, and this time would become known as the strongest
that
period in the golden age of piracy. This decade would see such famous pirates as Blackbeard, Bartholomew Roberts, and Anne Bonny, and it is estimated that by 1720 there were nearly 2,000 pirates sailing the seas of the Caribbean and North America.
2,000.
And this golden age would be seen by many to give way with the death of Bart Roberts and the execution of most of his crew. The next generation of pirates between 1720 and 1736 began fighting more for their own survival rather than for treasure, as the war against them was all but won. The characteristics of pirate crews also began to change, as the majority by then consisted of forced laborers from captured ships, moving away from the sort of pirate brotherhood towards a new form of violent
Slaves in the
tactics.
water.
A stream of pirate hangings numbering between 500 and 600 happened around this time, and the peak of pirate attacks by 1720 dwindled down to no more than 200 by 1726. So yeah, after hundreds of years of toleration, by the 1700s, nations began to crack down hard on the pirates who had once been so helpful to their colonial schemes. By 1730, they had become nearly extinct. But although their influence on the seas waned, their effect on popular culture has only increased with time. Works like Treasure Island by Robert Louis
True.
and Peter
it's
Pan
been
by J.M. Barrie
romanticized
have
almost.
taken much from the pirates of this time. And even today, we dress up as pirates, root for pirates in Hollywood movies, and use the Jolly Roger as an emblem for our sports teams, like St. Pauli in Germany or the Oakland Raiders in America. What is it about pirates that we still find so irresistible, even though most successful were on the whole murdering pathological monsters? We'll find out in our next episode of It's History by clicking here. And for an insight on pirate tactics, also click on this information button right over here. See you until next time.
Yeah. That's crazy. All this history about pirates. Like, yeah, I mean.
Oh, up to 2,000 during that golden age.
Yeah,
in
I know.
area.
That was a lot.
It's a lot of pirates.
Yeah. And like I said, they popular in movies. Pirates of the Caribbean, Peter Pan. You know.
I think it's a good like folklore story, and that's why people like it, and they like to write books on it, and like to
dress up like in Halloween. You know, like that. Captain Hood, Captain Morgan, Blackbeard.
I wonder if there's technically still quote pirates today. I mean, because you could have like people that are out on the water and being criminals, but are they technically pirates?
I think they consider pirates. Remember that one movie we watched a couple years ago with Tom Hanks? It was called it was based on a true story.
I'm trying to remember which one.
With Tom Hanks. Remember that he was the captain of the ship. And,
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there probably are
They were
still pirates, but I wonder if they're like they are back then. Like, do they literally just live on the sea and?
Nah,
like,
probably
isolated,
don't. I
or
doubt
do
they
you
just
think
live on the sea.
They live in the city and then go out on their boats and.
Yeah, I
pirate,
think that's what
you know
they do.
Like,
That's just a different way of doing it and stuff.
It's
You know.
interesting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, because they can't be careful. They can't just stay out there and just like, because like with all the technology and stuff, so they had to be like more like.
Yeah, but you would
know.
think even so, because like as soon as you know what someone's boat looks like, you think it'd be easy to track it down.
Well,
Because if you're gonna put it like at port somewhere, you're gonna see it. Like boats are not easily.
I'm sure
hid.
they more like, they're more tricky with it. I mean, they
Yeah.
figure out something, but yeah, those consider pirates still.
Yeah.
But
Anyways.
yeah, man, definitely great video.
Yeah.
A lot of information.
Very interesting.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks, Reese.
But everybody go in this video. If you want to send us a special video request, check out the links to our stream lives. Going to be in our description and our video cards. And don't forget to subscribe.
And thumbs it up.
Turn on notification. It's your memory B.
And Nicole.
We'll catch you on next. Stay awesome. Peace and love, baby.